And if people wanted a 2 affix item, they would just buy a blue item and save themselves some money. Really low numbers, worthless. Really low numbers, and all 3 primary stats. Identity Crisis Crossbow. If only that gold was a little higher. That being said, I might still try to look this one up because it does have 3 usable affixes, and then the gold is kind of a bonus. So this might have a shot. The gold is low, the vitality is low, but if somebody maybe wants to speed up their Act 3 Nightmare runs, that'll definitely do it. $62 ring, and it's shitty. So you got all 3 primaries and some vitality, and nothing else to speak of. When you're looking at minimum damage and maximum damage, or a damage range affix, obviously the damage range affix is wonderful because you're getting both a min and a max in one affix. Way to calculate it, this 17 minimum damage just divided by 2, and there's your average weapon damage increase if you're using spreadsheets or whatnot. So this is only offering you 8.5 weapon damage and a whole lot of nothing. Okay, here another example. So you've got this is actually pretty decent. It's maybe a little misleading. So you've got 31 weapon DPS that you're getting, which is quite good for a ring. Like for my character, for example, 30 weapon DPS is the equivalent of like 60 on a primary stat, or almost 3% crit. So if you view it in terms of that, you want to be looking for really smart buyers. That's what you're putting your hopes and dreams on, because you can't search for a damage range on the auction house filters. So you're hoping that there's smart buyers out there that are doing some scanning, or that are maybe just looking for 15 or above on a minimum physical damage, I think is the filter. And then just scrolling through those and looking for an actual range, not the minimum damage affix that this ring has. So it's got a primary, and life on hit is really decent. It's a really nice roll for a ring. And yeah, I think I can definitely get money for this. Again, you've got all 4 of your essentials that are competing, so really worthless. Strength, resist all, and crit chance. So this is for a fresh 60. You've got a real shot at selling this. If that cold was vitality, then there'd be a really, really strong chance that it would sell. But as it is, it's something we're going to look up. High roll on intellect for a ring, smidgen of vitality, and then some crit chance. So same sort of deal here. It's worth looking up. The thing is, you can always understand auction house prices. You can have a good handle on things. But the actual numbers and the actual viability of what you can really consider a liquid item, what you can turn over quickly, that changes day to day. So your knowledge is really only as strong as the calendar and how often you play the game, because those trends can shift very rapidly. Wow, that's almost worth taking a picture of. Quite bad. Again, pretty bad. Nothing really sexy about that. Strength and vitality, and the socket. So, this is really, really horrible. I mean, even with a strength gem in there, you're still looking at sub 90 strength, and a worthless vitality roll and nothing else of value. But we got a few things on the ground there.
Found some interesting things on my latest dig. You should take a look.
I think maybe we have. Oh, we've got a decent amount. Alright, this is it. Basically 3 full inventories. And these are all 63s, I believe. Intelligence, vitality, unfortunately it's a really low resist all, so this isn't going to sell. It's got the 3 I was telling you about. Primary, vitality. Another thing to note, when you are looking for, when I am, so I assume most people are, when you're looking for a primary, vitality, and resist all, you can almost always get yourself a essentially free 4th affix of an individual resist. And like I mentioned before, you're going to want to generally value those as physical is better than fire, which is better than arcane, and then down to lightning, poison, and cold. Did I miss one? So arcane's fairly decent, but the resist all is so low, just not going to cut it. Primary, vitality, and physical resistance. So really low rolls on your primary stat. 2 sockets is just not going to save that. Really low damage on the weapon. Really low damage on the weapon. Life steal and 100 dexterity. If this was 1,000, maybe there's a shot of it selling, but it's not, so it doesn't. Too low to even bother with, although the combination of intelligence and vitality is pretty nice for the sword. One little thing to note, having really high primary or vitality rolls on a weapon is extra great when it's a reduced level requirement, because the max roll on, say a 50 item, they're going to be gaining a huge budget on those affixes compared to what they can afford at their level. So maybe the weapon DPS isn't great, but they're affording a ton more of their essential stats. So you got a 19 magic find, and it's got some resist all. So that has some potential. We'll go ahead and price that. $16 reduced level requirement. Strength and vitality. So nothing sexy. Generally, for reduced level requirements, that even weapons included, you're looking for offensive pieces, not defensive pieces. Nightmare, Hell, they're not difficult. So people aren't exactly looking for a leg up on survivability at lower levels. They're looking for a leg up on speed, which is going to be increased damage. Decent numbers on the int and vitality, but there's no movement speed, and if it doesn't have the movement speed, there's no other saving graces here. There's nothing else sexy about it. So, like I was mentioning before, like a helm, you're almost always going to want to socket if it's a gold find or a magic find item. With boots, if it doesn't have movement speed, you're really going to be wanting something else amazing. Gloves and bracers, because you can get crit chance on those. If it doesn't have crit chance, you're really looking for something outstanding. So because certain stats are only available on certain slots, they become an almost mandatory affix to turn over those items in a reasonable amount of time. And if it doesn't have that, they really do have to be outstanding. So you got a really nice natural crit damage and a huge roll on intellect, but unfortunately the numbers are just so low that this is a waste. Again, numbers are close, but just not enough. I'm really surprised that we haven't found something great yet. This would be wonderful if the DPS was a little higher. You've got almost 800 life on hit and 10% attack speed, but and even a little bit of like, what is that, 12 resist all, which is, like I was saying before, the intellect is 10 to 1 for essentially resists for a barbarian or for any class for that matter. You can if you didn't know that, you can see that by hovering over. You can see what intellect gives non-intellect classes, and same goes for dex and strength. I'm not sure if you have to have the correct tooltip choice activated in the gameplay options or not for that. No vitality and triple primary stats. When you look at this from a statistical standpoint in this game, when you factor in how many affixes there are, and that they've really not put any sort of gating, any sort of categorical limits on which affixes can appear on which slots, it really is quite amazing how many good pieces there are. Like, it actually makes you think there shouldn't be that many good. The chances of getting a high roll on the stat you want is already low enough, but then the chance of it having a high roll on 2 of the stats you want, or 3 or 4, this is why the price goes up exponentially by just adding a 4th or a 5th affix. You can get that primary, like I was talking about, the trifecta of a primary, vitality, and resist all. That's going to be moderate. If you get great on those, you might have a few 100,000 for a decent piece on whatever slot you're looking for. If you add in a 4th affix of exactly what somebody's looking for, that number can double or triple, and now you're in the low millions, 1, 2 million. If you add a 5th affix, all of a sudden you're in the 8-digit range, and you're 9, 10, 11 million dollars or gold. And if somehow you can add a 6th, that's where you skyrocket up to 100 millions. Or they're all incredibly high rolls on those 5 affixes. Because statistically, it's just astronomical to find high rolls or the exact correct combination that you're looking for. So when there are things like damage to attackers, health globes, reduced level requirements, low magic finder gold rolls. So, although low magic find rolls are not throwaway, if it's a great item and it's got a low magic find roll, that will absolutely set it apart from its competition in the auction house. So don't discount a 12 or 13% magic find. It definitely does have value. So that sword could have been decent if it was just a little higher on damage. I would consider this one if it was maybe 750. 'Cause it's got attack speed, it's got a primary stat, and it's got, I can afford to put like a 70% crit damage gem in there and sell it. Speaking of that, one nice little thing to look for, if you're feeling bored, you can always scan the auction house looking for a high. Search for a socket, and then on your second filter, you search for, I would say 80% crit damage, 80 or and then you're going to see 80s, 90s, 100s or more, and then you want to look for the ones that don't have natural crit, that are only getting the crit damage from the socket. I can't tell you how many times that I've gotten a weapon either on buyout or more often than not just on bid, and the gem in the item is worth more than I paid for the auction. People are putting in those 80, 90, 100% crit gems into weapons, and they're only selling those weapons for 500,000, a million, 2 million, and I can turn around and snag that gem out with my jeweler, and then just turn around and liquidate that gem in a matter of minutes. So, something to keep an eye out.